They say no good deed goes unpunished. I used to think that was just a cynical old saying, something bitter people muttered. Now I know it's the damn truth. My name is Zariah, and this whole nightmare started because I loved my sister, Reagan. Loved her enough to offer her the one thing she couldn't have, the one thing she and her husband Brent desperately wanted, a baby. I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. We were at Mom and Dad's, the four of us. Me, Reagan, Mom, and Dad. Brent was there too, looking pale and quiet as usual. Reagan had just gotten off the phone with her fertility doctor. Another round of IVF failed. Another wave of devastation washing over her. Her face was blotchy, eyes red-rimmed. It's never going to happen for us, Zariah, she whispered, her voice cracking. Mom, Sophia, was rubbing her back, murmuring soothing noises that didn't seem to help. Dad, Raymond, just stared at his hands, his expression grim. My heart ached for her. It truly did. Reagan had always dreamed of being a mother. Don't say that, Reegs, I said softly. There are other ways. She looked up, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Like what? Adoption? We've looked into it. The waiting lists are years long, and it's so uncertain. That's when the idea, a seed that had been dormant in my mind for a while, fully bloomed. What about a surrogate? Reagan's breath hitched. Mom stopped rubbing her back. Dad looked up. Who would do that for us? Reagan asked, her voice barely audible. I took a deep breath. I would. The silence in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, Reagan's face crumpled, and she burst into fresh tears, but this time they seemed different. Hopeful. Oh, Zariah, she sobbed, lunging across the small space to hug me so tightly I could barely breathe. Would you? Would you really? Yes, I said, my own eyes stinging. Of course I would. You're my sister. Mom and Dad were beaming, tears in their eyes too. Zariah, that's the most wonderful, selfless thing, Mom said, her voice thick with emotion. Dad just nodded, looking at me with a new kind of respect. Brent finally spoke, a quiet, "Thank you, Zariah. We don't know what to say." And so it began. The clinic visits, the hormones, the procedures. It was a lot, but every time I saw the hope in Reagan's eyes, it felt worth it. When the doctor finally confirmed the pregnancy, the joy in our family was explosive. Reagan practically danced around the clinic waiting room. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she chanted. "You're giving us everything, Zariah. My baby. You're giving me my baby." That phrase, my baby, started to become a constant. At first I didn't think much of it. It was her baby, biologically hers and Brent's. I was just the oven, right? That's how I saw it. A very special, loving oven. The first few weeks were a honeymoon period. Reagan was attentive, always asking how I was feeling. Mom and Dad fussed over me, bringing healthy snacks and telling me to rest. "You're carrying precious cargo," Dad would say with a wink. But then, little things started. Tiny shifts. Reagan would call me multiple times a day. "What did you have for lunch, Z? You know, my baby needs the best nutrients." Or, "Are you getting enough sleep? 8 hours minimum. It's crucial for my baby's development." It was subtle, couched in concern, but it started to feel less like care and more like monitoring. One evening, we were all having dinner at my place. I'd been craving spicy Thai food all day. the kind that makes your nose run and your eyes water. I'd ordered a green curry, extra hot. As I took my first blissful bite, Reagan wrinkled her nose. "Zariah, are you sure you should be eating that?" It's delicious," I said, mouth full. It's so spicy," she said, her gaze fixed on my plate. "Oh, my baby wouldn't like that." I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. The curry suddenly didn't taste as good. A small, cold knot formed in my stomach. "It's fine, Reagan. Lots of pregnant women eat spicy food." "Well, I've read that it can cause heartburn, and you wouldn't want to be uncomfortable, would you?" "For the baby's sake," Mom chimed in, always quick to back Reagan up. "It's my baby, Mom," Reagan corrected, a slight edge to her voice. "And I just want what's best." I looked from Reagan's insistent face to my mother's placid agreement, then to my father, who was suddenly very interested in the pattern on his napkin. Brent just chewed his food silently. That cold knot tightened. It was the first shadow, the first tiny crack in the beautiful, selfless picture I'd painted in my mind. And I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be the last. That cold knot in my stomach didn't just stay. It grew, week by week, until it felt like a lead weight. The suggestions about what Reagan's baby would or wouldn't like soon morphed into outright instructions. My apartment, once my sanctuary, started to feel like a well-monitored terrarium. "Zariah, I dropped off some organic kale and quinoa," Reagan announced one morning, letting herself in with the spare key I'd foolishly given her. "The nutritionist I consulted for my baby says it's packed with essential folate." I was halfway through a bowl of sugary cereal, a small rebellion. "Thanks, Riggs, but I was kind of craving Captain Crunch," she physically recoiled. "Captain Crunch? Zariah, are you serious? Do you have any idea what that processed sugar does to a developing fetus? To my baby's brain?" Her voice was sharp, accusatory. "It's one bowl, Reagan." "One bowl is one bowl too many. You need to be more responsible. This isn't just about you anymore." Then came the sleep schedule. Mom called me one Saturday morning. "Zariah, darling, Reagan mentioned you were still up past 11 last night. You know, rest is paramount for the little one." "Mom, I was watching a movie. I'm a grown woman." "Yes, dear, but you're a grown woman carrying your sister's precious child. Reagan is just worried. She didn't sleep well herself, knowing you were up so late. It stresses her out, and that can't be good for my baby either, indirectly. Can you believe that?" My late-night movie watching was stressing Reagan out, and therefore, the baby. The mental gymnastics were astounding. My social life was next on the chopping block. I had plans to go to a friend's birthday dinner, a quiet affair at a nice restaurant. "Caitlin's party?" Reagan asked, her brow furrowed when I mentioned it. "Is that really a suitable environment for my baby? Restaurants can be loud, smoky near the entrance, and what if people are drinking heavily around you?" "It's a classy Italian place, Reagan, not a frat party," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Brent and I just think you should be avoiding any unnecessary risks," she pressed. Dad, who was on speakerphone during this particular interrogation, chimed in. "Your sister has a point, Zariah. Better safe than sorry. Think of the baby." Brent, bless his silent heart, just mumbled, "Yeah, maybe a quiet night in would be better, Z." He always seemed to be treading water, terrified of making waves with Reagan. I started to feel like I wasn't Zariah anymore. I was the vessel, the walking womb, my own desires, my own comforts, even my own thoughts, were secondary to the perceived needs of Reagan's baby. When I tried to gently push back, to assert some small piece of myself, I was met with a united front. "You're being a little hormonal, sweetie," Mom would say with a tight smile. "Don't be selfish, Zariah," Reagan would snap. "This is the least you can do after everything I've been through." Even Dad would shake his head. "We're all just trying to ensure a healthy pregnancy, Zariah. For Reagan's sake." For Reagan's sake. Not for mine. Never for mine. The hurt was a constant companion now, a dull ache behind my ribs. They were so quick to dismiss my feelings, so eager to paint me as difficult if I didn't comply with their every whim. The joy I'd felt at the beginning, the genuine happiness in helping my sister, was curdling into a bitter resentment. They weren't treating me like a beloved sister performing an incredible act of generosity. They were treating me like a high-maintenance appliance. One afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. Reagan had called to tell me she'd scheduled a private prenatal yoga session for me at a studio across town during my lunch break, and hadn't even asked if I was interested or available. "It's non-negotiable, Zariah. It's for my baby's flexibility." I hung up, my hands shaking. I needed to talk to someone who might understand, who might still see me. I drove to Mom's house. She was in the kitchen, humming as she arranged flowers. "Mom, can we talk?" I asked, my voice trembling a little. "Of course, dear. What is it? Is it the baby? Are you feeling all right?" Her concern was immediate, but I knew where it was directed. "I'm fine. The baby's fine," I said, taking a deep breath. "It's about Reagan, and you and Dad too, sometimes." Sophia paused, her hands still on a rose stem. "What about us, Zariah? She's being so controlling, Mom. It's like I have no say in my own life anymore. Everything is about what her baby needs. She dictates what I eat, when I sleep, who I see. You all do, to some extent. I feel like I'm disappearing." My mother set the rose down and turned to face me, her expression cool, unyielding. "Reagan's been through so much, Zariah," she said, her voice devoid of the warmth I craved. "All those failed treatments, the years of disappointment. You can't possibly imagine what that's like. You need to be more understanding." Tears pricked my eyes. "But I am understanding. I'm carrying her child. Isn't that enough? Don't I deserve some consideration, some respect?" Sophia sighed, a small, impatient sound. "It's only for a few more months. Honestly, Zariah, a little inconvenience for such a monumental gift? Think of the baby. Think of what this means to your sister." I stared at her, the hope I'd carried into the room shriveling. Inconvenience. That's what my life, my body, my feelings had been reduced to. An inconvenience. I realized then, with a chilling certainty, that I had no ally in my mother. She had chosen her side, and it wasn't mine. I was utterly alone in this. The walls started closing in, literally and figuratively. After Mom's chilling dismissal, the control escalated from daily intrusions to near constant surveillance. Reagan suddenly decided she had to attend all my doctor's appointments, not in the waiting room, in the examination room. With me. "Hi, Dr. Evans," Reagan chirped, bustling past me as I checked in. "I'm the intended mother. So, how are my baby's growth percentiles looking this week?" She'd answer questions directed at me. "Oh, Zariah's been a little tired, but we're managing her B12 intake." I'd sit there, feeling like a specimen under a microscope, my own voice drowned out. Dr. Evans looked uncomfortable at times, but Reagan was so forceful, so relentlessly present, that it was easier to let her steamroll. Then came the suggestion from Mom and Dad. "Zariah, honey, we've been thinking, why don't you move in with us for the last trimester? Just for better care, you know. We can make sure you're eating right, getting enough rest. Reagan could pop over easily." Better care was a laugh. It was about control, about having me under their thumbs 24/7. "No, thank you," I said, trying to keep my voice firm. "I'm perfectly capable of managing here. My doctor says everything is progressing wonderfully." "Don't be stubborn, Zariah," Dad said, his tone implying I was being difficult. "We're only thinking of you, and the baby, of course." "Mostly the baby," I muttered under my breath after hanging up. I felt so incredibly isolated. My own family, the people who were supposed to love and support me, were treating me like a disobedient brood mare. The resentment had now hardened into a quiet, simmering fury. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't a steal, someone who might actually see me. I called Caitlin. We met for coffee. I ordered a decaf latte, anticipating the third degree if Reagan found out about caffeine. "You will not believe what they're putting me through," I started. And then it all came pouring out. The food policing, the sleep lectures, Reagan at my doctor's appointments, the pressure to move in with my parents. Caitlin listened, her eyes growing wider and wider. "Zariah, that's insane," she finally said, shaking her head. "They're not treating you like a sister or even a human being. They're treating you like an incubator with inconvenient opinions." "Exactly," I cried, relieved that someone else saw it. "And if I say anything I'm hormonal or selfish, they act like I'm the one being unreasonable." Unreasonable? "Zariah, they're being bullies. What you're doing for Reagan is amazing, and they're abusing your generosity. This isn't okay." Her validation was like a balm to my bruised spirit. "I just don't know what to do," I confessed. "I feel trapped." The breaking point, the moment that transformed my quiet fury into a cold, hard resolve, came a few nights later. I'd gone to bed early, feigning a headache to avoid another lengthy phone call with Reagan about the organic cotton swaddle blankets she'd ordered for her baby. I couldn't sleep, though. My mind was racing. Around 10 p.m., my phone, which I'd left in the living room, buzzed. I crept out of bed, thinking it might be Caitlin. It was Reagan, but it was a pocket dial. I could hear her voice, clear as day, and Mom's. They were talking about me. "Just so emotional lately," Reagan was saying, her voice dripping with condescension. "Honestly, Mom, I'm counting down the days until this is over, and my baby is here, safe with me." "I know, sweetie, I know," Mom cooed. "She's been more difficult than we anticipated, but it'll be worth it in the end. We just need to manage her for a little while longer." Manage me. Then Reagan said the words that stopped my heart. "And we need to be firm about access afterwards. I don't want her thinking she can just pop in whenever she wants. It'll confuse my baby. We'll have to manage Zariah's contact very carefully. Limited, supervised visits maybe. At first, anyway. My blood ran cold. Limited, supervised visits? To see the child I was carrying, nurturing, the child whose kicks I felt every day. They were already planning how to cut me out, how to minimize my role once I'd served my purpose. I wasn't just an incubator. I was a temporary inconvenience to be thanked, and then swiftly discarded. I ended the call, my hand shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. The betrayal was a physical blow, stealing my breath. All my sacrifices, all my love for my sister, meant nothing. They saw me as a means to an end, and once that end was achieved, I would be irrelevant. Lying in bed that night, staring up at the dark ceiling, the fury inside me solidified into something else. Something cold, sharp, and determined. "They think they own me," I whispered into the darkness, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "They think they can use me and then just throw me away." A bitter laugh escaped me. "They have no idea what's coming." I reached for my laptop, the screen illuminating my face in the dim room. My fingers flew across the keyboard, typing out the words that would change everything. Surrogacy lawyers near me. The internet search felt like a clandestine operation. Each click, each website I scrolled through was a small act of rebellion. I found a few local firms, but one name kept popping up with glowing reviews, especially in complex family law cases. Ivan James. His website described him as a fierce advocate for his clients. And honestly, fierce was exactly what I needed. I called his office the next morning, my heart hammering against my ribs. I used a vague, "I need to discuss a sensitive family matter regarding a surrogacy agreement." His assistant was discreet and scheduled me for a consultation 2 days later. The hardest part was finding an excuse to get out of the house without raising suspicion. I feigned a sudden craving for a specific prenatal massage I claimed Caitlin had recommended, one that was conveniently located near Ivan's downtown office and would take a couple of hours at least. Reagan, predictably, grilled me about the massage therapist's qualifications and whether the oils they used were organic and baby-safe. I gritted my teeth and played along. Ivan's office was sleek and modern, but not intimidating. He was older than I expected, maybe late 40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing and a calm, reassuring demeanor. "Zariah, thank you for coming in," he said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "Please tell me what's going on." And so I did. I poured it all out. The initial loving gesture, Reagan's escalating possessiveness, my parents' complicity, the constant policing, the feeling of being a walking womb, and finally, the overheard conversation about managing my access. I even brought the original surrogacy agreement, a document I'd signed so eagerly, so naively, with only Reagan's family lawyer looking it over for everyone. How stupid I had been. Ivan listened intently, his expression unreadable. He didn't interrupt, just nodded occasionally, his gaze fixed on me. When I finally finished, my voice hoarse, he took the agreement I'd slid across the polished mahogany desk. He read through it slowly, meticulously, occasionally making a small note in the margin with a silver pen. The silence stretched, filled only with the rustle of paper. I found myself holding my breath. Finally, he looked up. "Zariah," he began, his voice even. "This agreement, while standard in many respects, does contain clauses regarding your well-being, your right to make your own medical decisions in consultation with your doctor, and the expectation of respectful treatment from the intended parents." "Respectful treatment?" I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. They wouldn't know respectful treatment if it bit them on the backside. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched Ivan's lips. "Indeed. From what you've told me, Reagan and your parents haven't just breached the spirit of this agreement. They've trampled all over it. Their behavior, the constant demands, the attempts to control your diet, your social life, even your medical appointments. It's not just unkind, it's arguably coercive." "Coercive? They are creating an environment of undue pressure and emotional distress," Ivan explained. And this overheard conversation about limiting your contact with the child post-birth. That demonstrates a clear intent to disregard any reasonable expectation of your continued involvement, which, depending on the specifics of your state's laws and the final wording of any pre-birth order, could be highly problematic for them. He leaned forward slightly. You mentioned they had their family lawyer draft this? I nodded. Yes, he said it was fair to everyone. Ivan raised an eyebrow. It's fair to the party paying his bill, Zariah. You should have had independent counsel, but that oversight, ironically, might even play in our favor now. It shows you weren't fully advised of your rights from the outset. He tapped the agreement with his pen. They've been careless. They've been arrogant. They assumed you would just take it. They assumed you had no power. A tiny spark of hope, the first I'd felt in months, ignited within me. So, what can I do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Can I make them stop? Can I get some of my life back? Ivan looked at me, his gaze direct and surprisingly intense. There was a steeliness there that hadn't been apparent before. Zariah? He said, his voice dropping a little. Their behavior isn't just morally reprehensible, it's legally actionable. They've handed us a loaded gun, metaphorically speaking. They've documented their own misconduct through their actions, and, I suspect, through texts and emails you might have. He paused, letting his words sink in. The air in the room felt charged. The question is, Ivan continued, his eyes holding mine. Are you ready to pull the trigger? Pull the trigger. My mind reeled, but a strange sense of calm settled over me. For weeks, I'd been a puppet, my strings pulled by Reagan, Mom, and Dad. Ivan's words weren't just a lifeline, they were a weapon. And yes, I was ready. More than ready. Yes, I said, my voice surprisingly firm. Yes, I am. A grim sort of satisfaction flickered in Ivan's eyes. Good. Then here's what we do. The next few weeks were a masterclass in duplicity. Outwardly, I became the model of compliance. When Reagan called to insist I only drink triple-filtered alkaline water, my baby needs the purest hydration, I'd say, okay, Reagan, I'll pick some up. When Mom suggested I start napping twice a day for optimal fetal development, I'd reply, good idea, Mom. I'll try that. I even feigned enthusiasm when Reagan showed me swatches of gender-neutral but leaning towards sophisticated beige paint for her baby's nursery. A nursery I now knew I was never intended to be a significant part of. Their arrogance was my shield. They were so convinced of their control, so blinded by their entitlement, that they mistook my newfound quietness for submission. They had no idea that beneath the placid surface, a storm was brewing. Internally, I was a woman on a mission. Ivan had been very specific. Documentation is your best friend, Zariah, he'd said. Every text, every email, every unreasonable demand. Write it down, date it, time it. If you can legally record conversations in your state without their consent, do so. If not, make detailed notes immediately after. My phone became an evidence locker. I saved every condescending text from Reagan. Did you do your Kegels today, Z? My baby will thank you during delivery. Every guilt-tripping voicemail from Mom. Zariah, Reagan is very upset you ate that piece of chocolate cake at Susan's birthday. You know how sensitive she is about her baby's sugar intake. I started a journal, hidden deep under my mattress, detailing every controlling phone call, every dismissive comment, every time I felt belittled or erased. It was painful to relive, but each entry fueled my resolve. One afternoon, while I was supposedly resting, Reagan had called 3 times to check. I did some online snooping. It wasn't hard. Reagan wasn't exactly subtle. I found her Pinterest board for the baby, Project Steel Sprout, she'd named it. It was filled with images of a lavish nursery, designer baby clothes, and even a mock-up of a birth announcement that read, "Reagan and Brent Lucas proudly welcome baby Steele." No mention of me, not even a hint. Then I found the Evite, a sip and see pre-invite for a party scheduled a month after my due date. "Come meet baby Steele," it chirped. Again, my name was conspicuously absent. It was like I was a ghost in my own life story, a footnote they were already trying to erase. I saved screenshots of everything. Each one was another nail in their coffin. I had another secret meeting with Ivan a week later. I presented him with my growing dossier of evidence, the texts, the journal entries, the Pinterest board, the Evite. He reviewed it all, his expression growing more resolute with each page. "This is excellent, Zariah. Their pattern of behavior is undeniable. They're practically building our case for us." Then he leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I've been doing some deeper research into precedents in this state," he said slowly. "There was a case a few years ago, similar circumstances, undue pressure, emotional distress, a clear pattern of the intended parents attempting to marginalize the surrogate beyond the terms of the agreement." My breath caught. And Ivan continued, a slight smile playing on his lips. "The court found that the surrogate's initial consent was compromised by the subsequent coercive behavior. It gave her significant leverage, Zariah, more than just enforcing the existing agreement. It opened the door for her to contest the pre-birth order entirely, or at the very least, to dictate all terms moving forward concerning her well-being and the child's. My heart leaped. This was more than I had dared to hope for. This wasn't just about getting them to treat me decently. This was about power. Real power. "So, what does that mean for me?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Ivan met my gaze. "It means, Zariah, that you are in a far stronger position than you, or they, could ever imagine. We can demand full autonomy for you for the remainder of the pregnancy. We can dictate terms for any post-birth contact, if you even choose to allow it. And if they push back, we can credibly threaten to challenge their status as intended parents based on their egregious conduct." A wave of something fierce and exhilarating washed over me. Fear was still there, a small tremor in the background, but it was overshadowed by a potent sense of impending justice. They had pushed me, demeaned me, and planned to discard me. They thought I was weak, pliable. They were about to find out how wrong they were. I took a deep breath, the air tasting of freedom and a little bit of righteous fury. "Let's draft the letter," I said, my voice clear and steady. "It's time they learned who they're dealing with." The letter Ivan drafted was a masterpiece of legal firepower, polite but utterly ruthless. It was delivered by courier, one copy to Reagan and Brent, another to Mom and Dad. I imagined the moment they opened it, their smug certainty shattering like cheap glass. Ivan had called me just before it was due to arrive at their respective houses. "The packages have been signed for, Zariah. Brace yourself." Brace myself was an understatement. My phone started ringing less than 10 minutes later. Reagan. I let it go to voicemail, my heart thudding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. Then Brent. Then Mom. Then Dad. It was a relentless barrage. My voicemail filled up almost instantly. Ivan had been clear. Do not engage. Not by phone, not by text, not in person. All communication must go through me. This is crucial. Let them flail. So, I listened to the voicemails, a strange mix of trepidation and vindication swirling inside me. Reagan's was first, predictably hysterical. "Zariah, what is the meaning of this? This atrocity? A lawyer? How dare you? After everything we've done for you, everything I've been through, you call Ivan James back right now and tell him this is a sick joke. This is my baby you're messing with!" Her voice was shrill, cracking with disbelief and rage. Brent's was quieter, laced with a pathetic sort of confusion. "Zariah? Reagan's really upset. We got this letter. I don't understand. Can't we just talk about this? This legal stuff seems a bit much, doesn't it?" A bit much. Bless his clueless heart. Mom's voice was trembling, but with fury, not sadness. "Zariah Marie Steele, I don't know what's gotten into you, but you are to stop this nonsense immediately. You are tearing this family apart. Do you have any idea how much you're hurting your sister? This is cruel, Zariah. Absolutely cruel. You call us now." The use of my full name, a tactic reserved for dire transgressions in my childhood, almost made me laugh. Dad's was clipped, angry. "Zariah, your mother and I are shocked and deeply disappointed. This is not how we raised you. You need to fix this. This lawyer of yours is clearly out of line." The letter itself was a thing of beauty. It meticulously detailed their breaches of the surrogacy agreement, the coercive control over my diet and lifestyle, the interference in my medical care, the constant demeaning remarks, and the clear evidence — hello, Pinterest board and Evite — of their intent to marginalize me post-birth. It then laid out my non-negotiable terms for continuing the pregnancy. First, full and complete autonomy over my body, my medical decisions, in consultation with my doctor, not Reagan's chosen panel of experts, and my personal life. No more policing, no more unsolicited advice, no more demands. Second, respectful treatment. All communication was to be civil and considerate. Any deviation would be documented. Third, a clear, legally binding plan for post-birth contact, to be determined by me at my sole discretion, if I chose to allow any contact at all. And the kicker, the part Ivan called the shot across the bow, it explicitly stated that due to their egregious behavior, I was reserving all my legal rights, including the right to challenge the validity of the pre-birth order that named Reagan as the intended mother, based on coercion and emotional distress. Essentially, it told them, you messed up badly, and now I hold all the cards. The calls and texts continued for days. They tried everything, screaming, begging, gaslighting. "We were only trying to help. You're twisting everything." They even tried to show up at my apartment. I saw Reagan's car pull up outside my window, Mom in the passenger seat. I didn't answer the door. They buzzed and banged for a good 20 minutes before giving up. Ivan had advised me to call the police if they refused to leave, but thankfully it didn't come to that. Each ignored call, each unanswered text felt like a small victory. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically it was almost dizzying. They, who had held me in their suffocating grip for months, were now on the outside, desperate and furious, with no way to reach me except through the impenetrable wall of my lawyer. The most telling voicemail came from Reagan about a week after the letter. The initial hysteria had worn off, replaced by a venomous rage that was chilling to hear. "You ungrateful bitch!" she hissed, her voice low and shaking. "You think you're so clever with your fancy lawyer? You think you can do this to us? To me? That is my baby you're carrying. My baby. You will not take my baby away from me. You will give me my baby, Zariah, or you will regret the day you were ever born. I listened to it, a grim, almost detached smile playing on my lips. The desperation was palpable. The entitlement was still there, but it was now laced with a dawning, terrifying realization that she might not get what she wanted. That her cruelty, her arrogance, had actual consequences. I saved the voicemail, of course. Another piece of evidence. Then I deleted it from my recent calls. The power was mine now. And I was just getting started. The air in Ivan's conference room was thick with unspoken animosity. It had taken another week of frantic, unanswered calls and increasingly desperate emails from their newly hired lawyer before they'd finally agreed to a meeting. On our terms. In our territory. Reagan, Brent, Mom, and Dad sat on one side of the polished table, a quartet of simmering resentment. Reagan's face was pale and pinched, her eyes darting between me and Ivan with undisguised hostility. Brent looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth, his shoulders slumped, his gaze fixed on the tabletop. Mom was attempting an expression of sorrowful concern, but the tightness around her mouth betrayed her anger. Dad just looked furious, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Their lawyer, a harried-looking man named Peterson, started with a conciliatory tone. Now, I'm sure we can all agree that this situation has gotten a little out of hand. There have been misunderstandings, perhaps some miscommunications. Ivan cut him off smoothly. Mr. Peterson, with all due respect, my client, Zariah, has experienced far more than misunderstandings. She has endured months of coercive control, emotional distress, and a complete disregard for her well-being and autonomy, all meticulously documented. He gestured to a thick binder on the table in front of us. We're past the point of discussing miscommunications. Then came the multi-pronged attack I'd anticipated, Mom started, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. Zariah, honey, how can you do this to your sister, to your family? We love you. This baby is supposed to bring us all joy, not tear us apart. Crocodile tears welled in her eyes. I met her gaze, my expression unyielding. The woman who'd told me my feelings were an inconvenience was now appealing to family unity? The audacity was breathtaking. Dad tried the intimidation tactic. This is an outrage, Zariah! You're dragging the family name through the mud with these accusations! Think of the scandal! People will talk! Let them talk, Dad, I said, my voice calm. Maybe they'll talk about how a family can treat their own daughter when they think she's powerless. Reagan, unable to contain herself any longer, burst out, You're being cruel, Zariah! Deliberately cruel! After I shared my deepest pain with you, my infertility, you use it against me. You offer this gift and then try to rip it away. What kind of monster are you? Brent actually winced beside her. I turned to face my sister, the woman I had once loved so fiercely. A gift, Reagan? Is that what this was to you? Or was I just a convenient solution, an incubator you could program and control? You never saw me, did you? You never saw the sacrifice. You only saw what you wanted. Ivan let them vent, his composure absolute. When they finally paused, breathless and glaring, he spoke. My client has listened to your perspectives. However, your actions have spoken far louder than any words you offer today. The terms outlined in our letter are non-negotiable if Zariah is to even consider continuing under any form of surrogacy arrangement. Peterson started to bluster. Now, see here. My clients are the intended parents. There's a pre-birth order in process. An order, Ivan interjected smoothly, that we are fully prepared to contest, citing extreme emotional distress and coercion, which, as you know, can invalidate such an order. We believe the evidence strongly supports our position. He tapped the binder again. Peterson's face paled slightly. He knew. Then, it was my turn. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm. This was it, the culmination of months of pain, planning, and a burning desire for justice. You're right about one thing, Reagan, I began, my voice steady, carrying across the room. I did offer you a gift, freely, lovingly, and you, all of you, I looked at Mom and Dad, took that gift and twisted it. You treated me like an object, a vessel. You policed my body, my life, my very thoughts. You dismissed my feelings, my discomfort, my humanity. You never saw me, the woman sacrificing for you. You saw a means to an end. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Reagan was staring at me, her jaw clenched. Mom had stopped crying, her expression hardening. Well, I continued, my voice dropping slightly, each word carefully chosen. The means has an end of her own choosing now. I looked directly at Reagan. I will carry this baby to term. I will ensure this child is born healthy and safe. But that is where my obligation to you ends. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the city traffic outside seemed to fade away. Due to your egregious behavior, the relentless emotional distress you have caused me, and the complete breakdown of trust, I have made an irrevocable decision. I took another breath. This baby is mine. I will be its mother. I will be retaining full legal and physical custody. There will be no adoption by you, Reagan. You will have no legal rights, no claim. The color drained from Reagan's face. Mom gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Dad looked like he'd been physically struck. Brent just stared, his mouth agape. You wanted a baby so desperately? I said, my voice cold, devoid of the warmth I once felt for them. You can live with knowing you destroyed any chance of having this one. You did this to yourselves. Sophia collapsed into genuine, racking sobs, a harsh, ugly sound. Raymond was speechless, his face puce with impotent rage. Reagan just stared at me, her eyes filled with a pure, unadulterated hatred that was terrifying in its intensity. She finally found her voice, a venomous whisper. You'll pay for this, Zariah. I met her gaze unflinching. No, Reagan, I said quietly. You already have. This is just the collection. The fallout from that meeting was immediate and spectacular. Peterson, their lawyer, practically threw his hands up after a few more sputtering attempts to negotiate. Ivan just calmly reiterated my position. There is nothing to negotiate. Zariah's decision is final. Any further legal challenges will be met with the full weight of the evidence we've compiled regarding your client's conduct. They tried, of course. Oh, how they tried. There were more threatening letters from Peterson, hinting at protracted court battles, at painting me as unstable, as vindictive. Ivan swatted them away like flies. Their case is built on sand, Zariah, he assured me during one call. Their documented behavior has fatally undermined any claim they might have had. They know it. Their lawyer knows it. This is just bluster. The social humiliation for them must have been unbearable. News like this, in a family as image-conscious as mine, doesn't stay quiet for long. Whispers started, then outright gossip. How Sophia and Raymond Steele's own daughter had turned the tables on them. How Reagan, so desperate for a baby, had treated her surrogate sister so appallingly that she'd lost everything. The carefully constructed facade of the perfect, doting family crumbled into dust. I heard through Caitlin, who had a cousin who knew someone, that Mom had stopped going to her weekly bridge club and Reagan had deactivated her social media. Good. Let them feel a fraction of the isolation they'd imposed on me. The remainder of my pregnancy was, for the first time, peaceful. I moved to a new apartment, a bright, airy place with a spare room that I slowly, lovingly turned into a nursery. My nursery for my child. I reconnected with friends I'd been forced to neglect. I ate what I wanted, slept when I wanted, and attended my doctor's appointments alone, feeling a profound sense of liberation. The only calls I answered were from Caitlin or Ivan. My family became ghosts, their numbers blocked, their presence in my life surgically removed. When the time came, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. Holding her in my arms for the first time, this tiny, perfect being I had protected and fought for, was a moment of such overwhelming love and triumph that it brought tears to my eyes. She was mine. Truly, unequivocally mine. Ivan had handled all the legalities. The pre-birth order they'd initiated was dead in the water. My name, Zariah, was the only one on her birth certificate as her mother. A few weeks after Lily was born, I named her Lily, for purity and rebirth. A small, plain envelope arrived. No return address, but I recognized Mom's spidery handwriting. Inside was a card, a generic, thinking of you type. Zariah, it read. We know about the baby. We hope you are both well. Perhaps one day, when things have settled, we can find a way to move forward. For the sake of the child, your father and I and Reagan still love you. I snorted. Love. They had a strange way of showing it. For the sake of the child. Still trying to manipulate, still trying to find an angle. I tore the card into tiny pieces and dropped them in the recycling bin. There would be no moving forward with them. Not now. Not ever. Their brand of love was a poison I wouldn't let near my daughter. I settled into my new life, a life I had forged from betrayal and pain, but one that was now filled with an unexpected joy. Lily was my world. Her gurgles, her tiny hand gripping my finger, the way she smelled after a bath. These were the things that mattered. Sometimes, late at night, while rocking her to sleep, I'd look out the window at the city lights. I'd think about Reagan, Mom, and Dad. I wondered if they understood, truly understood, what they had lost. Not just a baby, but a daughter, a sister. They had been so consumed by their desire for a child that they had destroyed the family they already had. They planned my erasure from their perfect family picture once I'd served my purpose. They'd talked about managing my access as if I were a troublesome pet. Instead, I had erased them. Not out of spite, not anymore, but out of necessity. For Lily's sake, for my own. They begged me to give them a baby, and in the end, I did. I gave them exactly what their arrogance and cruelty had earned them, a lifetime of knowing what they threw away, a lifetime of consequences. And I got Lily, and I got my freedom. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all.